In today's episode, I'm going to share 3 examples of how to answer another popular behavioral interview question at Amazon. That is, tell me about a time where you had to adjust your priorities to meet changing demands. And also I'll talk about 3 of Amazon's 14 leadership principles, that of customer obsession, ownership, and bias for action. Also, at the end of the video, I'm going to share some hopefully interesting insight, tips and tricks, and how to brainstorm for your own stories. The best example that comes to mind here is while managing a software as a service for the HR industry, where I had to manage a lot of live server updates, and because the technology was so new, we had to use extra precaution here, and my priorities were suddenly changing here all the time, because you see we had a few months with some spikes in traffic, and because our service was starting to being slow, we had to immediately address those issues by having to invent some simple caching mechanisms, and this actually helped me a lot to understand how to deal with such a fast-paced environment, and to employ an agile methodology when managing such software as a service projects. Now, this answer is good because it showcases one's ability to adapt to changing demands, and I believe it's suitable not only for entry-level roles, but could be also a good idea for more senior types of project management positions. Notice that I employed the STAR format here, that is had a situation, a task, an action, and a result, and I find this to be especially important until you are really good at answering these types of behavioral questions. Also, I tried to keep it brief. I didn't talk a lot about the company size and all the other details. This could actually be tested through follow-up questions if there's interest to do so. Now, why would Amazon ask you these types of questions? Well, I believe there are 3 main reasons for this to happen. First is that a behavioral question is designed to give the interviewer more insight into one's performance by looking at previous behavior, past behavior, in order to predict future behavior. Then the second important reason here why they ask you this question is to test your storytelling skills. Notice in my example that how my story went on naturally. I didn't give it too much detail. It wasn't too brief, so that no one could understand what actually that meant. And sometimes the way that you tell the story is more important than the story itself, right? And the third reason why they would ask you this, because they wanted to see in this particular scenario how you perform under pressure. And I made it clear in the example that I had to handle many releases, and these were more like on short notice, and it seemed to work fine. I mean, they could have asked me more follow-up questions if they wanted to see more details about that specific environment. So maybe the best example here would be to talk about a story of my YouTube channel, because you see, I really wanted this channel to be successful, and it's not easy to publish HR content that is compelling for people to consume. So in the beginning, I focused on what I thought was the most relevant content within a recruitment marketing context, and unfortunately there weren't too many people looking at my videos. And as with any YouTube channel, you don't have many chances to grow there. You really have to do your best and publish often and publish good content in order to succeed. So I had to change my priorities from publishing content that I thought was interesting to content that was actually more likely to be consumed by people. Therefore my motto here, HR content that people actually want to consume. And this wasn't one time, this was maybe a few dozen times, because I really tested a lot. I performed a lot of A/B testing here in order to really try to satisfy my audience, and luckily enough it's starting to look much better these days. I mean, my traffic increased 7 times in the past 3 months. So this answer is good for a recruitment marketing role, but for pretty much any marketing position, or I would say even a PR role at Amazon. And the reason why it's good is because it's concise, the flow of information is natural, and also I employed the star format to answer this one. Notice here how the story ended on a very positive note, and this is also another opportunity to showcase my strengths here. And it's very, very important to understand that these stories are actually the start of a conversation. So the more confident you feel in such a scenario, the better the communication will evolve. I remember in a previous role, while developing an HR software that was providing our clients with integration to various job boards to allow them to place their job ads, that we were tasked to integrate around 20 such job boards. However, I believe 1 or 2 weeks into the integration, we only integrated a handful, maybe 5 or 7 of them. We noticed that there were 2 clear winners here, and we actually had to quickly switch focus here from integrating more job boards to better integrating the existing ones, because that's where the action was happening. And many of our clients told us, hey, but I cannot remove my job ad without a lot of too many clicks there. So this was challenging because on one hand, the technical side, we had to handle different versions of the code, but also challenging because we did promise actually to deliver the integration with all 20 plus such job boards. However, this turned out actually a great idea, because in the first 2 or 3 months, I think our traffic spiked, I think 4 or 5 times, just because of those few job boards that proved to be extremely profitable. So this example is good because it showcases one's ability to adapt to changing demands, and it's pretty concise. Notice here that I also employed the star format, and it just feels like it's the right type of answer for an SD role. So how do you prepare for the behavioral part of the Amazon interview? And a possible option here is that, especially if you're only getting started here, is to simply go through your past experience, especially showcased in your CV, and simply take your time to write down as much as you can about all the projects that you've done. If you don't have a professional experience, then simply go to your university or school or extracurricular projects. It's worth spending your time, even if you spend 1 day just writing about those things. It's worthwhile as an investment, simply because it will feel a lot more natural later on. You won't have to spend the time, spend extra brain cycles to remember all those things when you're practicing some questions. Now, once you're done brainstorming about your past experiences, if you haven't already, it's always a good time to start looking at the 14 leadership principles, and some people recommend to memorize them. I wouldn't go that far, because I'm not an adept of that type of learning experience, but I do believe that they are super important, that you read them multiple times, and you not only you read the title of the principle, but read the content, because you'll be surprised how different is the content from the title in certain situations. Now, once you're familiar with the principles and you've also brainstormed for your stories, then it's time to test yourself. And for this, an example is that I just published a video with 35 most asked questions during any Amazon interview. So simply take that list, it's in the video description, and just go ahead and answer each of those questions as good as you can. And I believe it's going to become obvious how prepared or not you are for the behavioral interview this way. Now, obviously, this is more like a journey instead of a destination, and this process does actually take a lot of time. I know for myself, just to prepare these videos, I worked a lot in building those examples, and I also had the luxury to revise them 3, maybe 5 times here. So during an interview, everything happens as you go. So this is why it's especially important that you become proficient at this particular step. Also, for more senior types of roles, it's essential to really translate the job description into the principles that are relevant to your job, and ensure that you answer questions with those principles in mind. So, for example, for an SD role, if they ask you why Amazon, well, you must have an SD example. And of course, you may put it in a leadership context, but that will be a weaker answer, right? So this is how I see the process going on. Now, how do you know when you're ready, you're done with these questions? Well, it's quite simple. I mean, if you tell them in front of a mirror, or if in front of a camera, or ideally in front of your friends, then it will just feel natural from one point to talk about your experience. And there aren't that many questions all in all, especially if you take them by specific positions. So as soon as you feel like your answers come in naturally, then you should be ready for the interview. And of course, here I cannot stress enough how important it is to know the main principles of your job, because if you answer questions naturally, but you're naturally answering them bad, then you haven't done such a great job. So again, it's a journey, and look it this way, and I believe you should be fine. So I hope you found these examples in the videos and this final piece of advice useful, and thank you very much for watching.